Are you searching for the perfect holiday DIY project? Stick around as we create the most charming Mr. and Mrs. Claus hangers completely from scratch. Ideal for a simple holiday decoration or as thoughtful gifts. Check the description below for all the details on this month's solo. Begin by hooping a few layers of wash-away stabilizer. The woven kind generally works best. As you go, keep things neat by using your applique scissors for trimming your batting and fabric. First, stitch the place and lines with the batting to guide you. Place your batting on top of the hoop, and if you'd like some extra structure, feel free to layer a piece of cutaway or bag stiffener under the batting. Next, stitch the batting down. Once that's done, carefully remove the hoop from your machine and trim the batting and any stiffener, about 1 to 2 mm from the stitching line. This helps maintain a neat appearance as you continue. Stitch the place and line for the legs. And then place fabric A over the place and lines with the right side facing up, covering the outlines. Once it's in place, stitch it down. Remove the hoop and trim the fabric about 1 to 2 mm from the stitch line, leaving a little extra at the top seam for when we attach it later. For the boots, repeat the applique steps. Place both pieces of fabric B for the boots, stitching down the left boot first, followed by the right. Once stitched, trim each boot carefully. Next, it's time to add the backing. Flip the hoop over so the back is facing up, and place fabric C over it with the right sides facing up, covering all stitching. Tape it down to keep it secure. Stitch the backing down, then remove the hoop, and trim fabric C and any untrimmed fabric on the front to about 1 to 2 mm from the stitching. Be sure to leave around ½ inch of excess fabric at the top of the legs for assembly later. And trim any longer threads. For the finishing touches, stitch a satin stitch around the legs, ensuring that your bobbin thread matches the top thread, and trim any loose threads. Then repeat the same process for the boots, stitching a satin border around each and trimming as needed. Finally, add the decorative satin stitch around the boot trim and trim any loose threads. To finish, remove the project from the hoop. Trim away any stabilizer and dissolve it into wash-away stabilizer according to its instructions. Allow your pieces to dry, and that's it. Your Mrs. Claus legs are now ready to be attached to the body panel. Stay tuned for the next steps as we continue putting together our Mrs. or Mr. Claus hanger. Next in the tutorial, I'll show you how to stitch out your Mrs. Claus's head panel. Start by hooping up some cutaway stabilizer in your embroidery hoop. Once that's secure, place batting 1 on top and stitch it down. After you finish stitching, carefully remove the hoop from your machine and trim the batting about 1 to 2 millimeters from the stitching line. This will help keep everything looking neat. Now, go ahead and stitch the place and line for the collar. After that, take fabric A and lay it right side up over the line, ensuring it covers it completely. Once you've stitched it down, remove the hoop again and trim the fabric to about 1 to 2 millimeters from the stitching, making sure to leave a bit of excess in the seam. Next up is the face. Grab fabric B and repeat the applique process. Now let's add some detail by embroidering the satin stitch along the bottom of the face. And then move on to the cheeks, eyes, and whites of the eyes for that charming look. Now it's time for the hair. Use fabric C and repeat the applique process as before. Be sure to embroider the satin stitch around the edges of the hair for a polished finish. Following the hair, we'll work on the hat. Grab fabric D and repeat the applique process again. Now for the hat trim, switch to fabric E. And then stitch a decorative satin stitch around the trim to really make it pop. Next, let's add the bow. Once that's done, embellish with some holly leaves and berries in the hair for a festive touch. For the nose, take a small piece of fabric and repeat the applique process. Then embroider the satin stitch and add a little shine to the nose for some character. Then move on to the lips, adding the mouth line and a beauty spot for that finishing touch. And finally, carefully remove your project from the hoop and trim the seams down to about 1/2 inch. Once you're done, set the Mrs. Claus head aside until all your blocks or panels are ready for assembly. Now I'll show you how to stitch out the body. Begin by placing batting 1 on top of the hoop, and then go ahead and stitch it down. After that, take the hoop off your machine and trim the batting to about 1 to 2 millimeters from the stitching line. Now it's time for the coat. Using fabric A, repeat the applique process. Once you've stitched it down, trim the fabric, leaving a little excess in the seams. Next, let's add some quilting to the coat for a nice texture. For the coat trim, grab fabric B and do the same applique process. After that, add a decorative satin stitch down the center of the coat and along the trim for some extra flair. Moving on to the collar now. Take fabric C and repeat the applique steps. Then stitch the satin stitch around the collar to finish it off nicely. Now, let's work on the hair. Use fabric D and go through the applique process again. After you're done, don't forget to add the satin stitch around the hair. Optional steps. If you want to add a sign, grab fabric E and repeat the applique steps for that as well. Once completed, add a satin stitch around the sign and then embroider the words "We wish you a." And then next you can embroider the gloves and add the decorative sleeve trims to complete the look. If you're making the panel version of the legs, feel free to skip this part. But if you're ready to go, start by stitching the place and lines of the freestanding legs. Place the legs on top of the hoop, wrong side up. The back should be facing up. Then center them over the place and lines. Make sure the raw edges of the boots cross the place and lines by about 1/2 inch. Have the top of the boots facing outside the hoop with the boot heels pointing towards the center. Use some tape to keep the boots in place, then stitch them down. After that, remove the project from the hoop. Before trimming the seams, tape the legs away from them. Trim the seams about 1/2 inch for a neat finish. Finally, set your Mrs. Claus body aside until you're ready to finish all your blocks or panels. Using our regular sewing machine now, I'll show you how to join all the panels. Take the first 2 panels and place them right sides together. Use your pins to align the corners, ensuring they match up perfectly. Once they're aligned, pin along one edge to keep everything in place. Then head over to your sewing machine. When you're ready, stitch along the side seam, but remember to sew just inside the outer borderline that's already stitched on the blocks. This way, your stitching won't be visible from the right side later. After you finish sewing, open the seams and give them a good press with your iron to flatten everything out. I'll now show you how to add the loops for hanging. Take out fabric F and fold the 2 longer edges in widthways and sew a small seam, about 6mm or 1/4 inch, to create a tube. After sewing, open the seams and press it flat with the tip of your iron. Next, turn the loop right side out and press it flat, making sure that the seam is tucked away in the middle on the underside of the loop. If you'd like, you can edge stitch or top stitch along the edges for a polished finish. Then fold the loop in half lengthways. For a neat finish, machine baste the edges together. Once that's done, find the center point of your hanger and pin the loop in place. Give it a quick stay stitch to secure it. I'll now show you how to cut the backing. If you use the freestanding boots in your Santa, make sure to pin or tape these towards the center of the bottom block so they're out of the way of the seams. Before cutting your backing, measure the length and width of your hanger, adding about 1 inch of extra fabric on each side for seam allowances. Now cut your piece of fabric G and fabric H to the backing to fit those dimensions. Then slice them in half. These pieces will be used as the backing for your hanger. Place the two pieces of fabric G and fabric H right sides together on your table, pin them and stitch a 1/2 inch seam along one edge. Remember to leave a 5 inch 13 centimeter gap in the middle to make it easier to turn the hanger right side out later. Once that's done, press the seam open. Now lay your sewn hanger on top of fabric G and fabric H right sides together. Lightly pin them together, and if you'd like, cut out the backing material to match your front. Stitch a 1/2 inch seam just inside the border stitching. Next, trim the edges of your hanger to about 1/4 inch, 6 millimeters, and clip the curves to help everything lay flat later on. Now, turn it right side out through the opening in the backing seam to help those corners and seams sit nicely. Run the point of a chopstick or a tool like that pink thing along the inside seams. Give everything a good press to ensure it looks great. Finally, hand stitch or use fabric glue to close the back opening. And if you want, stitch in the ditch for a clean finish. And just like that, you finish your hanger. Enjoy your beautiful creation. Thank you so much for joining me in creating these adorable Mr. and Mrs. Claus hangers. I hope you enjoyed the process and are excited to display your finished projects this upcoming holiday season. If you have any questions or want to share your creations, don't hesitate to join our Sew Along group linked in the description of this video. For more fun designs and projects, be sure to visit us at swpea.com. Happy sewing, and I'll see you next time.